Most doorbell cameras are meant to make us feel safe, to capture friendly visits, packages on the porch, or the occasional stray animal wandering past. But sometimes, they record things no one can explain. Figures that move wrong, faces that don't belong, moments you wish you could erase. These 3 accounts come from people whose doorbell cameras caught the Hollow Man in places he should never have been. And in each case, the footage was the last thing they ever wanted to see. Story 1. He was watching my kids, but I don't have any. It started on a quiet Wednesday night with a notification from my doorbell camera app. Motion detected at front door, 1:17 a.m. I wasn't expecting anyone and live alone, so I tapped into the feed expecting maybe a raccoon or a late Amazon delivery. What I saw instead was a tall man standing absolutely still under my porch light, his face shadowed by the brim of a wide black hood, his head tilted slightly as if he were listening for something inside. He didn't knock, didn't ring, just stood there for 13 seconds before turning and walking away, disappearing into the darkness like he hadn't been there at all. That alone was strange enough to make my skin crawl. I replayed the footage several times trying to make out his face, but the image kept distorting. At one point, his lips moved, just barely. I couldn't hear sound, but when I zoomed in and slowed the video, I saw the words form unmistakably. I just want to see the children again. I stared at my phone, frozen. I don't have children. I've never had children. And nobody with children has ever lived in this house since I bought it 6 years ago. 2 nights later, the notification came again. Same time, 1:17 a.m. I jumped out of bed and pulled up the live feed immediately. There he was again, same figure, only this time he was standing closer to the door, close enough that the camera picked up a vague shimmer across his skin, like heat rising from asphalt. His face was still hard to make out, blurred, unreal, but his mouth moved again. I turned up the volume, and in the faintest whisper, I heard him say, "They told me you would let me see them." That night I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch until sunrise with a baseball bat and every light in the house on. The next morning, I called the police and showed them the footage. They shrugged, said there was no evidence of a crime, just a trespasser, maybe mentally unstable. They took a copy of the video but didn't seem too concerned. I asked about the possibility of someone using technology to spoof camera footage. The officer just gave me a look like I was speaking another language and told me to get a better lock. But the third night changed everything. This time I was awake, watching the feed in real time. At exactly 1:17 a.m., the camera light clicked on, and the man walked into frame, slow and deliberate. But he wasn't alone. Behind him, barely visible near the edge of the lawn, were 3 smaller figures. Children. They didn't move like normal kids. They drifted in jittery, glitched movements, their limbs not quite syncing with their bodies, like marionettes with tangled strings. The Hollow Man turned toward the camera, raised one arm slowly, and whispered directly into the microphone, "They miss their mother." I ran out the back door without even grabbing my keys. I drove an hour to my brother's place and refused to return home until police swept the property again. They found nothing. No footprints, no signs of forced entry. No one had seen anything unusual. When I returned days later, I pulled the old footage to show a tech-savvy friend, but every file from that night was corrupted. Only the thumbnail remained, an image of my front porch bathed in harsh white light, completely empty. I posted about it in an online forum, hoping someone might recognize the man. I didn't give details, but within an hour I received a message from an anonymous account. No greeting, no explanation, just one line. "He visits the homes where children used to be." I tried replying, but the account was deleted seconds later. I searched property records, no record of any family living here before me. But I can't help wondering what this house might have seen before the digital trail began. I moved not long after that, got a roommate, got a dog, got a different camera system entirely. But sometimes, around 1:17 a.m., I still get that itch to check the porch, Not out of curiosity, but because it feels like something is waiting, not to get in, just to be seen, to be remembered. The footage is gone, the camera long replaced, but I can't forget the way he looked directly into the lens, as if he could see me through it. He wasn't looking for children. He was looking for someone to believe they had once been there. Stories like this have been submitted by viewers who claim the Hollow Man followed them. If anything strange has happened to you, leave it in the comments. Story 2. The thing in my driveway didn't move until I blinked. It started with something simple, my porch light turning on by itself. The first time, I was halfway home from a late shift when I got a motion alert on my phone. I opened the Doorbell app, expecting to see a delivery or maybe an animal. Instead, there was nothing. The light was on, the driveway was empty, and there wasn't a breeze in the trees. It stayed like that for over a minute before the light shut off. When I got home, everything looked normal, but I still felt like something was off, like I'd just missed something important. The next night it happened again, same time around 1:30 a.m. I was already home this time, lying in bed with the TV low. Another alert, another empty driveway. But as I watched the live feed, the light stayed on longer than usual. That's when I noticed something strange. On the far edge of the frame, there was a faint blur in the shadows by the garage. At first I thought it was camera static or a smudge on the lens, but when I paused the footage at the right moment, I could see it. A shape. Thin. Upright. Facing the house. I tried to zoom in, but the image broke apart into pixels. Still, I knew what I saw. It was someone, or something, standing completely still, just far enough from the light to stay hidden. The image didn't show movement, but it was there. When I blinked and looked again, it was gone. No footsteps. No shadow retreating. Just vanished like fog. On the third night, I was ready. I had my screen recorder on, and I sat up with the feed pulled full screen. The motion alert came at 1:33 a.m., and this time the shape was much closer, right behind my car. It didn't move, didn't even twitch, but its outline was unmistakable. Too tall for a person, with limbs that hung unnaturally low. It was like someone wearing a long coat over something skeletal. I didn't blink, not once, but my eyes watered, and when I finally gave in and closed them for a split second, the screen glitched. In that brief flicker, it had moved. Now inches from the doorbell camera, I nearly dropped my phone. Its face was close, but undefined. The pixels seemed to bend around it, like the lens couldn't make sense of what it was seeing. There were hollows where the eyes should have been, and a long tier of a mouth, open but silent. As the footage kept playing, the motion light flickered. Then the screen froze, just for a second, and a line of static garbled across the bottom of the video. The text read, "Why did you stop watching?" I replayed it in disbelief, but when I closed the app and tried again, the clip was gone. Not just missing, deleted. Even the cloud storage had no record. The app said the last saved event was from days before. I contacted support, but they said my system hadn't uploaded any new recordings. They suggested I reset my device and check my Wi-Fi. I knew it wasn't a glitch. I'd seen it. It didn't want to be captured. It just wanted to be seen. The next night, I left all the lights off and parked my car down the street. I aimed the camera lower, facing directly at the driveway, and sat with the feed open in the dark. At 1:33 a.m., the alert came again. The figure appeared slowly, like ink bleeding into paper. It stepped into the frame this time, one limb at a time, like it was testing gravity. It didn't approach the door. It just stood in the middle of the driveway and tilted its head upward, looking straight into the camera. I tried not to blink. I stared until my eyes burned, but I had to look away for a second, just one. And when I looked back, the driveway was empty. No motion, no figure, just the porch light flickering like it was about to die. But this time, a clip had been saved. A single still frame. In it, the figure was right at the door. Its face, or what passed for one, filled the screen. Written across the image in distorted white text, "Now I see you." If you're still watching, you're not alone. Most people turn this off by now. But you want to see what happens next. Maybe you should stick around or subscribe before it gets worse. Story 3. He walked into my house, but the door was still locked. The first sign that something was wrong came when I woke up to find my front door wide open. I live in a third-floor condo with electronic locks, a security system, and motion alerts tied into my phone. Yet that morning, there were no alarms, no notifications, and no reason for my door to be unlatched. It was open about 6 inches, like someone had just walked through and hadn't bothered to close it. But the security system was still armed, showing the door as closed and locked. According to the logs, no breach had occurred. My first thought was a glitch. Maybe the lock hadn't latched the night before. But that didn't explain the cold draft in the living room, or the faint scent hanging in the air like metal and burnt dust. I brushed it off and went about my day, telling myself I'd double-check the system that night. But when I reviewed the doorbell footage out of curiosity, what I saw drained every ounce of warmth from my body. At exactly 3:42 a.m., a figure stepped into view. He didn't come from the stairwell or hallway. He simply materialized in front of the door, like he'd been cut and pasted from another frame. Tall, lean, and slightly hunched, he wore a long coat that seemed to flicker at the edges. His head turned slightly toward the lens, but the face never clarified. Then, without touching the knob, the door opened on its own. The figure stepped inside, and the feed glitched into a swirl of static and blackness. I must have replayed it a dozen times, hoping for a different outcome, but each time, the door opened for him like it had been waiting. I called building security, and they pulled footage from the hallway camera. According to them, nothing appeared at 3:42 a.m. In fact, the entire hallway feed was corrupted for a 20-minute window, beginning exactly when my door opened. They chalked it up to a power issue and shrugged off my concern, but I knew better. Over the next several nights, I began waking at the same time, 3:42 a.m., to the exact same conditions. Door locked, no alerts, but the hallway light outside my unit would be on, casting a thin glow under the threshold. One night, I found my TV playing static at full volume. Another, my kitchen cabinets were all wide open. There were no signs of forced entry, and nothing was ever taken. Just disturbed, rearranged, like someone wanted me to know they'd been there. I installed an indoor camera hidden behind a stack of books on the entertainment center. I didn't even tell my friends about it, just wanted to be sure I wasn't losing my mind. That night, the doorbell camera caught nothing, but the indoor feed recorded everything. At 3:42 a.m., the deadbolt turned on its own. The door swung inward without resistance, and in walked the same figure, cloaked in shifting shadows. He moved with slow, unsteady steps, arms dangling, head cocked in an unnatural angle. He paused at the edge of the living room, turned toward the camera, and grinned. The footage froze, then the camera shut off. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. When I tried playing the recording the next morning, it was gone. Not corrupted, deleted. The app showed no saved events. Only a single frame survived in my cloud gallery, auto-synced to my phone before the clip vanished. It showed the hollow man mid-step, one hand reaching toward the screen. Burned into the bottom corner in distorted text were the words, "You let me in." I moved out within the week, packed everything and signed a lease across town. But last month I got an email from the building manager. He said the new tenant in my old unit had reported strange disturbances. Cabinets opening, TV switching on, lights flickering. But the last thing he said in the message is what keeps me up now. The new tenant? Gone. Left in the middle of the night without warning. All they found was a single note taped to the inside of the front door. It read, "He doesn't need keys. New horror drops every Hollow Wednesday. Subscribe before he finds someone else."